Last Friday, Aaron Sparrow and I tore the Acolyte apart. Now it's time to talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and this enormous failure that's looming. This movie has cost so much money. Just how much money can they lose? Well, Kathleen Kennedy has decided she wants them to lose even more money. I can't believe she said what she recently said. Here to talk to me about that is Aaron Sparrow. How you doing, Aaron?
I mean, I'm doing a lot better than the Indiana Jones franchise. I can tell you that. Man, what a sad week it is, and we haven't even gotten the movie released yet.
We're going to get into all the details on how much this cost and how much they're going to have to make just to break even, and they ain't even going to come close. The director of the movie, James Mangold, obviously stepping in for Steven Spielberg. He was smart. When he was interviewed and they said, is Phoebe Waller-Bridge going to take over for Indiana Jones moving forward? He said, I would never do that. Unfortunately, Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, just doesn't have the natural reaction or instincts to know that that was likely to be a bad statement that would garner negative interest. Kennedy spoke with Variety about the upcoming Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny film, where she was asked if Disney and Lucasfilm see potential for Phoebe Waller-Bridge and her character Helena Shaw to carry on the franchise. Kennedy informed the outlet that it's entirely possible. However, she also added, we're not having any of those conversations right now. We've just focused on finishing this with Harrison. Oh, it's entirely possible that this character that everyone already knows is completely heinous. I've seen several reviews from people that have actually seen this movie so far. She's the worst thing about it. She's a know-it-all. She's everything that's wrong with female characters associated with Lucasfilm these days, and somehow dialed up and more hateable than Rey is the way I understand it.
Well, at least, there's a certain charm to Daisy Ridley. There's a certain likability to her, even though she wasn't given any material to work with as the character, because the character is just cardboard. Whereas, I tried to watch Fleabag. I understand that it's not made for me, but I tried to watch it, and I can usually enjoy things like that. Like, I really like The Marvelous Miss Maisel. I think that's a great show. And so I tuned into Fleabag, and I could not make it through the first episode. Like, I instantly hated her so much, and not just because of the character, but just because of her. Like, I could feel so much of her real personality in this character, and it was just immediately off-putting. And I don't know why Hollywood, every few years, Hollywood has somebody that they glom onto as like the next big thing that audiences absolutely despise or disinterested in. Like Sam Worthington. Remember when Sam Worthington was in everything? And they kept trying to push him on us, even though he's a charisma vacuum. And now it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and everything that she's been attached to since Fleabag, her own property, everything they tried to force her into, she's been completely unlikable and has ruined, whether it's behind the scenes or actually up front in the movie.
And as soon as she was cast, the biggest, I guess, fear of anyone that likes Indiana Jones is that she was going to put on the fedora and carry on the Indiana Jones legacy after this movie, because Harrison Ford obviously is an older gentleman. It's his last time playing the character. And that was the worst possible outcome for any of this. There have been a lot of rumors about how they were going to do it. And if they were going to do it, then they said they weren't going to do it. I can't believe that Kathleen Kennedy, an executive at Disney in charge of Lucasfilm, didn't have the foresight to say, hey, this thing that's going to make everyone mad and everyone scared is going to happen, maybe I should entertain it and let people think that perhaps at the end of this, we will carry on with Phoebe Waller-Bridge as the new stand-in Indiana Jones without just saying, outright denying it. Say, hey, we have no future plans for that. What the fuck?
Why is that even a plan? The character's name is Indiana Jones. You can't take that and attach it to another character. You just can't. So it would have to be the Adventures of Helena Shaw. And who gives a crap about that? That's not even an interesting title. Indiana Jones immediately makes you go, oh yeah, that sounds kind of adventurous. And like from the very moment when I was a kid and I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark and I was introduced to this character, I was intrigued. His look, his name, everything about him just like screamed cool. And it didn't hurt that he was Han Solo, in my mind, as a little kid who was a huge Star Wars fan, seeing Han Solo in a new role, it was like, oh, I love this guy. No, Phoebe Waller-Bridge has none of that. She has none of the charisma, none of the presence to carry a franchise, let alone the Indiana Jones franchise. At some point, you have to accept the fact that you've either got to reboot or just let the franchise go. These things can't go on forever. And I saw James Mangold talking about in an interview this week, talking about how, one of the big challenges is that, people don't really want to see Indiana Jones old, and Harrison Ford's an older man and people aren't really into that. I would be excited to see another Indiana Jones film if I knew it was going to be good. I don't care how old Indiana Jones is.
The worst part about this is, according to Chris Gore, who was on The Critical Drinker, I'm a fan of that channel, shout out to you guys, he says the first part of the movie is really good when it's Indiana Jones doing Indiana Jones stuff. He says once this Phoebe Waller-Bridge character shows up, it ruins the movie outright from that point forward.
And I don't understand what this obsession is within Disney of taking all these heroes and making that everybody loves and making them broken old men. They did it to Luke Skywalker. They're doing it to Nick Fury on Secret Invasion, and they're going to do it to
Han Solo.
Jones. Did it to Han Solo. Made him a deadbeat dad. It's just everybody is just has to be deconstructed and destroyed so that we can prop up these female characters who haven't earned what the male characters have earned. You can have great female characters, but you got to put in the work. Like you do with the male characters. You have to get them over. You have to make people love them. You can't just tear down the male hero and then put the female hero on top and say, there you go. Now love her the way that you loved him. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, they are looking at losing a lot of money, even probably more than like The Flash, which is struggling right now. Because according to slashfilm.com, the latest estimates from Box Office Pro have the fifth Indiana Jones movie taking in anywhere between $68 and $102 million on its opening weekend. That's a very broad range, but most tracking has the film landing in the $60 to $70 million range. Unfortunately, there is much working against director James Mangold's send-off of Ford's beloved adventurer. This is the first time that Steven Spielberg has not been in the director's chair for an indie movie, and that is no small thing. Thus far, reviews have been pretty mixed, but mixed reviews aren't the big issue here. It's the film's inexcusably large budget. Dial of Destiny carries an eye-melting $300 million budget. Holy crap, $300 million? They spent $100 million more on this than they did The Flash.
Yeah, and that may not even be the entire amount because there were so many reshoots and so much rejiggering of this. You had to keep bringing John Williams back to score another piece of it, because you changed things up. Who knows what the cost overruns are. And they have promoted the hell out of this. They've spent a lot on marketing, and I'm sure they had some partners come in that covered some of that. But, this thing probably all told, maybe 400 million in that they're into this, maybe more. How are you going to recoup that? How are you going to recoup that when everybody is, you released it a month early at Cannes and everybody tore it apart. And now you had early screenings and everybody's tearing it apart. The word of mouth is terrible. Is there any other way that you can shoot yourself in the foot? You start out with Kathleen Kennedy, and then you put together a script with the idiots at Lucasfilm, with all packed with Kathleen's agenda of replacing male heroes with female heroes, and then you have to reshoot it a bunch of times. You have James Mangold out there lying on Twitter because he's just getting blasted by people saying that no, there haven't been any reshoots. Then John Williams comes out and embarrasses you when he says, yeah, they just reshot some stuff that I have to score. Everything about this is a disaster from start to finish. Why can't Disney get it right anymore?
And what were they thinking releasing this at Cannes first? That's supposed to be like artsy fartsy movies, not really big budget. Did they think all the snobby Europeans were going to be like, oh my goodness, this is as good as Happily Ever After, whatever Oscar bait movie they came out this week. They were just hoping we're replacing Indiana Jones with the female hero. Please like it.
Yeah, they thought that the audience would be friendly, or conversely, there's the theory out there that Bob Iger knows that this is a disaster. He's looking for ways to, shore up getting rid of Kathleen Kennedy. So he had this released at Cannes knowing it would get savaged. And, knowing that it would be a flop. So then he has the political capital within Disney to fire a female executive of her stature.
I don't know. We're old school nerds. I grew up on Star Wars. I grew up on Indiana Jones. I grew up on G.I. Joe Transformers. I can't believe they've made an Indiana Jones movie starring Harrison Ford. It's his last time as the character, and I have less than no interest to actually go see it. It feels impossible to pull off, yet they've done the impossible here.
How does it feel, Wes, to have seen all the things you loved as a kid burned to the ground?
There's got to be a couple things like Thunder. Well, I guess they made the Thundercats bad too, didn't they?
Yeah, they did that. Well, goodness. Fortunately, nobody watched it.
Thundercats Roar, yeah. What haven't they destroyed? Well, the Voltron thing on Netflix wasn't that bad, even though there was some gender identity stuff in there. I thought it was done pretty well.
Yeah, that was pretty well received.
There you go. Good. They didn't destroy Voltron yet. Got it.
No, they still got time though. They still got time. Yeah, you know, they destroyed He-Man, they destroyed She-Ra, they destroyed G.I. Joe with that Snake Eyes movie. Oh God. Yeah, it's Transformers has been limping along. You know, the new movie's not doing that great. What do you what's left?
Mr. Belvedere. When are they coming for him? When are they going to get Alf? They're going to make the Alf movie and ruin that too?
No.
Used to love that show.
Oh, everything good turns to crap, as Ukla the Mock sings.
As soon as Disney buys it, next thing you know, Disney buys Mr. Belvedere. I'll be like, oh, that's it. I'm closing down the channel. We're done with this.
I think you mean Mrs. Belvedere, Wes.
Absolutely.
So let's get into Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yeah. Let's get into this money thing again, because that $300 million figure is very much worth noting. Does not actually have a marketing budget included. So after marketing, conservatively speaking, Disney is probably in the $400 million in the whole area, as you mentioned earlier. Given that theaters generally keep around half of all money made from ticket sales, you're talking about needing at least $800 million at the global box office to have a chance to break even for Indiana Jones 5. That number is all but entirely out of the question at this point, meaning the budget is going to almost assuredly keep the film from breaking even during its theatrical run. Forget about actually turning a profit at this point. Let's say the film does indeed debut with around $70 million domestically, which would be about 30% less than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. If we presume a similar decline for the film's total theatrical run, Dial of Destiny would pull in just north of $550 million worldwide, or losing around $125 million total.
Yeah.
Minimum, and that's just believing the $300 million number.
Mm-hmm. It's when you keep making these extremely expensive movies and you keep ruining them and you keep putting, letting people be in charge who have a track record of nothing but failure. What do you expect to happen? You're just going to keep bleeding money. And Disney is bleeding money all over the place. Disney Plus is a huge sinkhole for them. The movies are tanking. They've damaged their brand irreparably, perhaps, through all of this political fighting.
Pixar's dead.
Pixar's dead. Star Wars is dead. Lucasfilm's a complete joke. This is the last property that they have to ruin from George Lucas. And they're gonna ruin it. And it's like, what is the value in any of this? What have you really done by keeping this woman in charge? I mean, does she have a list of everybody in your company who's been to Epstein's Island? Is that why she's still employed? Like, how many times can you fail and prove that you have no idea what you're doing? You go back and you look at those interviews with Steven Spielberg, when he talks about her being an executive producer on things, and he said the only thing she ever really brought to the table was interrupting other people with bad ideas, with their bad ideas. And then somehow, like George put her in charge of Lucasfilm. I think he thought that, I'm still going to be involved and she'll carry out what it is that I want done with the franchise, or she'll carry out my point of view or my vision, and that wasn't the case. She was just waiting to stab him in the back and take everything for herself. But the problem is she doesn't have the talent or any creativity to do these things. And you can brag about, look at all the films that she was involved with. Yeah, look at all of them. And who else was involved with them? George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, people that were geniuses.
The best movie directors in the history of the industry, pretty much. Yeah, it's nuts they got there. Every time, I bet for every $1 million she's been paid, she's lost him $15 million.
Oh yeah, easily. I would say that's just off the top of your head. I'd say that's a very fair estimate. Like
that, it's pretty crazy what's happened here. And obviously, Indiana Jones is about to go down in spectacular fashion. And I don't enjoy seeing this stuff, Aaron. We'll talk about it, and we're certainly going to pile on here because it's so obvious what's happening. But I don't want any of this stuff to happen. I want good Indiana Jones movies to come out. Hey, I wouldn't mind a prequel Indiana Jones show on Disney Plus. I remember watching Young Indiana Jones as a kid. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like the biggest production in the world, but you got some Indiana Jones adventures. I want Star Wars to be awesome. I want the MCU to be awesome. I want all this stuff to work. But basically everything Kathleen Kennedy touches, she just turns to crap because, it's a lot harder to make a movie than go get coffee for the person making the movie.
Yeah, it really is. And, I'm somebody who, when I first found out that George Lucas was selling Lucasfilm to Disney, it was a time where Disney was, creatively kind of like seemed like they were doing really well. They were firing on all cylinders. And, we'd had the prequels and we'd had the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and we'd had Red Tails. And it was just kind of like, maybe George this is grandpa turning over the keys, to the car because he can't really drive it anymore. But man, I would, what a mistake that was, because I would much rather see George have a singular vision and maybe don't execute it, to its fullest potential, than just these terrible movies made by activist committee.
If you can't get enough of Aaron Sparrow, and I know I can't get enough of Aaron Sparrow, the guy's an absolute gem, one of the best things happening here on Thing Critical YouTube. Last Friday, he and I talked about another enormous mistake on Kathleen Kennedy's part. That is the enormous botch that is The Acolyte that might never come out, but if it does, will probably be the worst thing in the history of Star Wars ever made. Definitely check this one out right here. There's also a link in the video description.